Thank you for joining us. This is the Allon Exchange with financial advisors Jay and Brittany Hagee. I'm Spike Spangle. This week, what kind of advice are you getting on retirement planning? Who are you listening to? Jay and Brittany, how are you doing this week?
We're doing wonderful.
We're doing great.
Wonderful.
How are you, Spike?
I'm very good. I'm really excited to be talking about this because everybody out there likes to give advice on all kinds of topics.
Yeah.
But who are you listening to? And oh my gosh, are you actually applying the principles of mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, your friends around the water
That's
cooler?
right.
Well, there's a lot of advice that people just want to freely give. And a lot of times that advice may not be the best advice. A lot of times it's outdated, or, maybe it worked for them, but it won't work for you. You don't want retirement to be about this rule of thumb. It's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
It's about what rule actually fits you.
That's right. And it can be good intentioned. It's not people are trying to evilly, I'm going to get you behind in retirement, or I'm going to make sure I take down your retirement. No, it's none of that. They're trying to say, hey, here's what's worked for us, or here's what I've seen my parents do or my grandparents do. But it can be outdated advice, and it could sound good until you actually run the numbers behind it.
Well-intended.
That's right.
Well-intended, but maybe not have the impact
So we
that
want
you
to clear up some of that advice today.
Yeah, I mean, would you use the TV repair guide from your 1959 RCA on your current television
Probably
right now?
shouldn't.
The advice that used to work could have been great advice a long time ago. So I'm sure you guys hear stuff like this all of the time. But let's start out with the big one. And for those who have watched our program before, maybe you've heard me say this before. I still go back to the $1 million question.
Yeah.
$1 million, is this a specific target? Does this target number work today? If somebody says to a young couple, hey, you need to save $1 million for retirement, is that enough today?
Yeah, here's the deal. There's no such thing as a magic number, because we have that all the time. It says $1 million. Someone could come and say, I heard I need $2 million or $3 million, whatever that looks like for them, because everybody has different life experiences. But what I want to explain today, there's no magic number. There's no magic one-size-fits-all number for you to take into retirement. It's really the plan that matters, because in retirement, it becomes more about the income that you're going to generate from those dollars than it is the actual amount that you could just throw out a random amount and say, I would be good with. I've seen plenty of people retire with less than $1 million, but really have the retirement they were looking for because the plan is right. And then I've seen other people that were scared to death with $3 or $4 million in an account and weren't able to retire because they didn't have a plan in place and didn't have the clarity that they needed. So I want to just go ahead and give a pause there and say, don't look for a magic number. Don't look for, I need $1 million, or I need $2 million, or I need $3 million. Get a plan in place, and that's what we help
Well,
with.
that's where expenses actually matter more than your total assets.
That's right.
It's not just looking at, I got to amass this much. Well, what are you spending? Will what you're spending be supported by what you've amassed? That's the key question, right? Ensuring. So if you want that magic number, we can come up with that magic number, right? We can build that out and kind of reverse engineer based on what are you spending, what are your expenses, what do you need for retirement to maintain your lifestyle. We can come up with that, but it's going to look different based on the expenses you.
And I think something for the viewers to think about, do you spend the same amount as the person who's giving you advice? Do you spend the same amount as your coworkers, as your family, as your brother, as your sister?
That's right.
Probably not.
I can tell you a gentleman I met with a few weeks back that said, hey, I'm working with a guy, and he said, hey, once you have $1 million, you're good. You can retire. And I asked him the simple question, well, is this gentleman paying for your expenses for the rest of your life? Because he don't know whether $1 million is good for you or not. He's just coming up with, this is what's good for me. And he feels this is what's good for him. So he's passing that advice along, as you only need $1 million and you can retire. Unless that person that's giving you that advice also is creating an income stream for you, I wouldn't take that advice.
Okay, and we would also be amiss if we did not acknowledge that if you're looking at, saving up a certain amount of dollars, like $1 million, if you're holding that within a 401k or an IRA, you also have to acknowledge not all of those dollars are yours.
That is true.
Because 20, 30, 15, whatever the percentage is going to go in taxes. Uncle Sam has already staked his claim on those dollars. So you're actually working with less than you think you are when you're looking at total, net value of your assets or your holdings, right? So that's a factor you got to consider as well. You don't have as much as you think you have in those accounts.
Yeah. Here's something I think for our viewers, because we like to keep the show interactive, and I'm pretty sure that all of our viewers at home right now, you got a phone around you somewhere. We've got a quiz to see how prepared you are for retirement. Jay and Brittany have put it together, and it's absolutely free for you to use. Go to allonquiz.com. That's allonquiz.com. You can scan this QR code with that phone you've got in your hand, open it up to the camera function, and point it at this QR code, and then you can just click on it. It'll take you right to it. Or you can type it in, allonquiz.com, go to a web browser. What is it, a few minutes, a few different pages of the kind of things to be thinking about? Are you prepared to retire?
Yep, 3 or 4 minutes. Super simple process it'll take you through. And really what it does, it's going to walk you through the 5 components of comprehensive financial planning, seeing how ready you are in each of these areas: investment management, tax planning, income planning, healthcare, and estate planning. So it kind of gives you a little peek into each one of those areas to see if you are best prepared for retirement.
Yeah, and not just to see if you have the magic number, but to see, do you have the plan?
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Another thing I don't like, just one more thing to beat up that $1 million number, is that if you're really far behind that, it almost makes it feel like it's insurmountable.
Yeah.
If you think of money as the goal, I think we all know that. We all knew this through faith and through all of our different. If money is the goal, that's a terrible goal. I want to build a lifestyle.
That's right.
How do we do that? Do you kind of construct that backwards, Brittany, with folks? Like, what do you want to do in retirement?
Absolutely, which is why we look at purpose-based planning. We build the plan around your purposes, your goals, where you want to be, the lifestyle you want to experience. So to your point, Spike, absolutely, people may not need $1 million. They may be, we've got families who operate on significantly less, and like Jay mentioned earlier, they are living the life that they want, that they desired. Yeah. And so it really does vary from household to household. So yes, we begin with your purpose and your goals. What do you want to experience in this stage of life? And then we build the plan, all those 5 pieces I mentioned a moment ago. We build all of those 5 around it to ensure that you can actually attain what you're working towards.
Money is always the tool, not the goal. Money is always the tool that we get to build a plan around the goal that you have, right? That's all we're looking to do. So if the goal is just to amass as much money as you can, you'll continue to do that until you die.
Yeah, it's never
So
ending,
there's never enough whenever you look at it that way. But we want to utilize money as the tool that gets you to the purpose-based plan that we can create for you, and that's exactly what we do when we meet with every client that we meet with.
So if you're not sure how prepared you are for retirement, you can go to the allonquiz.com and answer a few questions. It's a great conversation starter if you're sitting next to your spouse right now, or even a friend watching the program. When you're done with that and you know that you need a little bit of help, do yourself a favor. Call that phone number down on the bottom of the screen, and we'll get you started on your own complete and no-cost portfolio review with Jay and Brittany Hagee, founders of Allon Planning Partners. We're going to be back with more advice you've probably heard from your friends on retirement planning right after this.
Just a minute with Allon Planning Partners, Brad Johansson, Brittany Hagee. Brittany, when's the best time to plan to retire?
I'll answer that really quickly, really simply for you, Brad. The best time to plan is now. Now is the time. If you're 25 and just beginning preparing for your future, if you're 45 and amassing some savings, accumulating some wealth, or if you're 65 and ready to transition to retirement and you haven't quite planned yet and covered all of your bases, now is the time to do it. You've got a number of things to consider when you're looking at planning: tax planning, income planning, whether during your working years or your retirement years, healthcare, estate planning. All of these components, including investment management, are central to having a comprehensive financial plan. So Brad, the best time to begin planning is now.
Now! Just a minute with Allon could change everything.
Welcome back to the Allon Exchange with financial advisors Jay and Brittany Hagee of Allon Planning Partners. Are you prepared to be retired? All right, let's forget $1 million. What about $100,000? the number 100. This is often used as kind of a financial planning tool number in retirement. How is this often used or misused?
Well, the rule of 100, it's saying that you should take your age, take 100 and subtract your age from it. So if you're 60 years old, you would have 40. That means that's how many equities you should have in your portfolio, so that you're using that as an allocation strategy to say, how much risk should I take? And it's built around how old that I am, right? And so not only is that an outdated way to do allocation models, that's actually dangerous because people are living longer than ever before. You know, we have to take that into consideration. Risk tolerance varies from person to person. Modern portfolios are far better at diversification than they were in 1994 when this rule was first talked about, right? So we need to take a look at inflation. You know, it's out of control. It has been the last 5 or 6 years anyways. We're starting to bring it back down, but still things are more expensive. If you go too strict by this rule of 100, you risk running out of money. We have to stay invested.
All right, let me give you an example. To use these numbers then, you got an 80-year-old person, 80-year-old woman, so you're saying 80% of her money should be in fixed income. Don't interest rates change over time? How can you use the same rule over different interest rates?
That's the point exactly. You've got to really flux with what works for the individual. This is an example of a typical rule of thumb that absolutely is outdated. And a lot within our industry, there are so many of these rules of thumbs that we just use. But retirement shouldn't be driven by rules of thumbs. It should be driven by what works for each individual. And so what works for you may not not be part of this. So you've got to consider all these things Jay referred to. I mean, that's exactly what you've got to do. And ensuring that, I mean, thinking about how, you know, a 65-year-old may spend more than 20 or 30 years retired. The longevity, it's going to be longer. It's going to be more than planned.
That's something that I know that you address on your weekly radio show. I know you talk about it at live events, and obviously we've got to talk about it here. Longevity is something we're going to be talking about throughout the year. You can't use the same old rules of thumb that you have.
Asset allocation should be much more personalized than the rule of 100. You should be looking at things like your income needs, and everybody's going to have different income needs. You should be looking at what the market fluctuations look like right now, because there's something called sequence of return risk that matter when I retire, how I'm taking losses or getting gains the first few years I'm retired. So it should be very much individualized to your specific plan, and not just, man, follow this rule of 100 and you'll be fine. Because like you said, interest rates change. Environments change as far as what equities are doing. We have to make sure that you're allocated correctly for your income plan and your needs, not just a blanket, hey, if you're 80, you need 80% fixed income. It's dangerous to live that way.
If you're wondering what this is, on the bottom of the screen, this is the Allon quiz created by Jay and Brittany Hagee here to help you determine how ready you are for your own retirement. It's free, it's easy, it's fast, it's a handful of minutes there, but go to the Allon quiz. You can scan it on your phone right now, open it up to the camera, point it at this black and white box and click on it. It'll take you right there. We're not collecting this information. You're going to answer questions in there for yourself. Then if you'd like a little bit of help, you can always reach out to us here. But the Allon quiz, it's really helping people figure out, are they positioned properly for retirement? One of the things that you can't quite determine just from this quiz alone is the timing of your taxes. Isn't that one of the things that's also probably told to you by your parents, your coworkers? Don't worry about paying higher taxes in retirement. You don't have an income anymore, therefore you'll pay less in taxes,
Well, that's
right?
actually something that we have folks come to us and say, well, I didn't think I needed to tax plan now. I'm not in retirement yet, or I'm not in that phase yet, so why do I need to be thinking about it? Man, do you ever need to be planning for taxes? Because I tell you, taxes have a plan for you.
Yeah, there's a gentleman came in last week that I spoke with. He had over $2 million in his IRA. He had invested really well, and he was 72. And he said, why are my taxes still so high? I haven't worked in quite a few years. I said, sir, unfortunately, no one tax planned with you when you were 60. right? And so that's what we beg people to do. Come in and talk with us about your taxes, because it's not about just right now and how much taxes I'm paying just right now. It's 12 years from now, when you're 72, not just 60, how can we save you on the tax dollars you're going to be paying to Uncle Sam later down the road? Because he was so confused. I thought they were supposed to be cheaper in retirement, not more expensive. And it's because the RMDs that start kicking in, especially this coming year for him, was creating a much bigger tax burden than what he had anticipated.
We have a name for that. We call that the ticking tax time bomb, where you are in this place where you have to take from these accounts, your IRAs or your qualified accounts, your 401ks, where the government says it's time, you have to take these funds. And sometimes you may not need those, or if you do, man, it's going to really mess up your taxability with all of that. And so you do not want to go into that without a tax plan, because you will end up paying more in taxes than you need to.
Yeah. If I'm thinking as the viewer right now, I'm sitting on the couch at home, going, well, what can I do about why would knowing about my taxes right now help me 5 or 10 or 15 years down the road? What do you do?
I'll answer that for you, is because we can take a look, especially we had one big beautiful bill just passed, right? There are tax brackets that are going to remain the same until another Congress decides to change those. At least it's permanently for now. And I have been helping a couple, one in particular I can think of, for the past 7 years. From the time they were 58, they'll be 65 this year. And we've been laddering their Roth conversion strategy, meaning we've been able to take bits and pieces of their IRA dollars or their 401k dollars and put them into Roth or tax-free buckets over the last 7 years. So they're almost ready to retire. In the next year, they're going to retire, at least one of them, as I'm talking to them. And they will have significantly less taxes in retirement, because over the last 7 years, we've been able to strategically pay less in taxes a little bit at a time and put those into tax-free buckets. The sooner you start tax planning, the better. That's why we ask you to come in and have a complimentary consultation with us, or to take a look at one of our quizzes like this allonquiz.com. It's going to show you exactly where you stand right now and some areas that we could help you with in the future. And it's going to save you the dollars you're going to pay Uncle Sam.
Take that quiz. It is free. It is interactive. You'll get the answers to it right away. And when you're done with that, you can call this phone number down on the bottom of the screen so you can set up a time with Jay and Brittany themselves of Allon Planning Partners. Get your complimentary, no cost to you, written financial plan started with the team from Allon Planning Partners. We'll be right back after this message.
Just a minute with Allon Planning Partners. Brad Johansson, Brittany Hagee. How do we build an income plan in retirement?
You know, Brad, you may actually think it's pretty simple. I'll just draw from an account when I need it, or take X amount of dollars from my 401k each year. But here's the problem. You don't want all of your income in retirement to be taxable. You want to be drawing from taxable accounts, but then also have some tax-free buckets that you can pull from as well. What you don't want in retirement is all of your income to be taxable. So no matter where it's coming from, rental properties, 401ks or IRAs, pensions, you want to ensure that those components work together to make the income last for you.
Build an income that works. Just a minute with Allon could change everything.
Welcome back to the Allon Exchange with financial advisors Jay and Brittany Hagee. Today, some of the, well, I'll say it, nonsense they hear at times. I mean, it's well-meaning advice.
For sure.
But the advice from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago is not the same stuff that's going to help you be and stay retired today. Jay, literally, out of people's mouths, what are some things you've heard about financial planning for retirement?
Well, sure. One of the biggest ones would be, I'm going to spend less, or we're going to spend less in retirement than we do right now. To me, because I've worked with hundreds of retirees and helped many, many people retire, I have to stop myself from chuckling because I understand that you are not going to spend less in retirement. The tendency is to spend a little bit more in retirement, because you're going to have freedom that you probably haven't experienced to this point, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have time on your hands and hobbies that you can place yourself into and home repair stuff. Believe me,
You'll find somewhere to
I've
spend that
seen
money.
that go away, and people keep calling. I know this is the last month I'm going to take this kind of withdrawal because I know we got to get on a better income plan. You're going to spend more in retirement. And the reason this is kind of dangerous to me for folks to think we're going to spend less is because it gives you false confidence. It makes you feel like I'm ready to retire because I'm only going to spend 70% of what I am now, and I've got plenty of money to cover that. That false confidence will cause you to retire before a little bit prematurely, actually. And so we have to make sure that you understand when you're in retirement, you're probably going to spend as much as you're spending right now, if not more.
Yeah, you've got all of those different days off. And so you run into that fear. One of the biggest fears for retirees today, or pre-retirees, is running out of money in retirement. So again, be careful about what you think you know. Brittany,
That's right.
what have you heard?
Oh, another one I think we've heard is just keep your money in cash because that's safe. Well, let me tell you, there are many risks in retirement, and it's not just market risk. There are so many other risks to be concerned with. And when you're talking about cash, if you put all of your money in cash, you are at a purchasing power risk, inflationary risk, all of these things that will erode your dollars. So we sat down with a couple here recently, and they had all of their money, everything, IRAs, their personal savings, everything they had in cash. So we had an opportunity right there to talk through, okay, you think you're safe because it's not invested in the market. You're not subject to market losses. But let me walk you through some risks that you do have with your money being all in cash. We were able to make some minor changes. They're still extremely conservative, but now they don't have all of their money at this inflationary risk or purchasing power risk. So that's a really big one. That's a really big one. I think another one is, when we're talking about the markets, we've heard people say, well, somebody told me just wait till the market's stable, then invest. Okay,
Well,
when is that going to be?
That's
I'd
a
like
feeling,
to know.
right? That's emotional. And that's emotional. It's never going to feel stable,
That's
right? There's
right.
always going to be ups and downs.
And when it does feel stable, you watch out because the bottom's about to drop again.
Well,
it's
that's exactly
cyclical.
right. That's why you have to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy, right? And so you really have to do the reverse psychology of what you feel because your emotions will take over and you'll lose investment opportunities because I'm waiting till this thing kind of ebbs and flows and stabilizes before I enter. It's never going to happen
Right.
because it becomes emotional and you're making emotional decisions where we try to base ours around a plan and have data-based decisions going into when we should enter and how much of the market.
Do you
we
mind
should
if
enter.
I ask you
Yeah.
one? Because I've heard this one, and since we're in financial
Sure.
planning and retirement, Social Security, I've heard a lot of people saying, I want to take this Social Security earlier because I'm afraid it's not going to be there. Or I'm afraid it's going to be reduced, and I better just pile up as much money as possible. What do you guys feel about that?
Yeah,
rumor?
I mean, and that may work for some, but that's the thing. It's not just this rule of thumb that's automatically going to work for everyone. What most folks do, I'll give you an example. I sat down with a lady, and she was 62, and she said that exact thing. She
gonna
said,
take it.
I was told I need to file early, so I am so excited. I just turned 62. I can file. Well, we began talking about her situation and really quickly uncovered she was still working full time. She had a significant income, well over $70,000, $80,000. So what she didn't realize was that filing for Social Security would cause her to have to pay some of that back in taxes because she wasn't able to, she was not meeting the threshold for the income.
There's a penalty.
There's a penalty that is assessed when you are making over a certain threshold of income and are under your full retirement age and you filed for Social Security. You follow? I know that's kind of a confusing puzzle there, but those are that's an example of how you may not understand or those things are not widely known.
It's not very much from what I understand. It's something like $23,000 or $24,000.
$24,000.
If you make over that, that's the
you're
threshold.
penalized.
You're
You
giving
are
back
penalized.
nearly half
So
of your Social
here,
Security.
for her, she was filing at 62, getting a very reduced amount because of the penalty, and then she locked in her amount for the rest of her lifetime.
She already
right?
took a haircut on the
She-
major amount. Yeah.
Exactly. So she had made a really long-term decision based on a short-term recommendation from someone. in her
Right,
life,
and
right.
that's my biggest concern. Where did she get that advice? Did she read it somewhere? Did she hear coworkers talking about it? Neighbors, friends? Where are you getting your financial advice from? Is it from a financial advisor who has done this thousands and thousands and thousands of times? Somebody who does also estate planning, Medicare planning, the Social Security planning, investment strategies. Is your financial representative just somebody who you can talk to about your portfolios or your insurance or your estate plan? Well, they're not a complete financial advisor. So, not from my words, why don't you tell me what a complete financial plan looks like from Allon Planning?
Well,
Partners?
first, we've spent this whole show talking about bad advice, and bad advice really is cheap. You can get bad advice anywhere, right? But like real good retirement planning advice is priceless. And that's what we try to show folks is a comprehensive approach, not just one that looks at, should I buy a stock or should I buy a bond, or some of the things we've talked about here today, when should I take Social Security at this time versus this time, but look at all of them together in a conglomerate. So we take investment management. We start from that cornerstone. How should I be allocated? And then we create an income plan, because this whole thing we're talking about in retirement, the outcome of this planning is to have an income that lasts you the rest of your life so that you don't have to have the fear of running out of money. So we do really good investment management. We start there. Then we talk about the income plan, which leads us to a tax plan, because every dollar we can save and not send to Uncle Sam is a dollar you get to keep in your pocket because you've worked hard for it. And we can put it back to work, which means we don't have to take as much risk on our investment dollars, okay? And then you have estate planning and healthcare planning, which in retirement, those are super important, because healthcare will be one of the most expensive pieces of your retirement puzzle. So how do we pay for that? But having a legacy plan to say, hey, when I'm no longer here, I'm disabled, how do the people I love get cared for? And how do these dollars that I've amassed bless those people behind me, right? So we want you to take a look at the comprehensive plan, and that's how we're able to say, we're giving priceless advice in this retirement, not just cheap, bad advice, is because we're looking at the comprehensive picture, knowing what's best for you and your family, not just in this season, but every season through retirement.
From the advice that we've seen from decades ago, I'll ask you this one. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I think you have heard it as well. Is Social Security going to be enough for people to live on to maintain the lifestyle they want to in retirement?
Well, that's actually one that we hear, that people come in and say, hey, well, somebody told me Social Security will be enough to live on. Well, newsflash,
Absolutely
chances of that are extremely slim. You combine longevity, with inflation and all the number of factors, what's happening within Social Security itself right now, how the system has to change. No, Social Security will not be enough to live on, which is exactly why we encourage this conversation around what a comprehensive financial plan really is, pre-planning what I'm going to do when I face some unexpecteds, and ensuring that you have all your bases covered for this season of life called retirement.
And even though we know that you get a lot of different pieces of advice out there, and maybe you may have made a couple of mistakes here and there, we're not here to point and shine a light at that mistake you've made. We want to help you untangle those knots, get on track so you can live the lifestyle you've always wanted to in retirement. For you, that can start right now. Call that phone number down on the bottom of the screen so we can get you started on your own, no-cost, written financial plan for retirement. For Jay and Brittany Hagee, I'm Spike. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week.